replicate the African Leadership Academy, but it looked a very, very big vision from where I was then, and quite a lot of resources needed to go into it. I tried to start it in a small way, and I got about the first Leadership Academy I organized for teens between the ages of 14 and 17. I got about 33 kids. Now, because of the cost of organizing it in Warri, I got the kids to pay, and what I ended up with was 33 kids from very wealthy families. Okay. So it wasn't, I didn't start working for disadvantaged children.
Okay.
In 2014, I decided to do it in Victoria Island, and they paid, each child paid 50,000, and I got about 38 kids to attend. Then again, to the same thing, all the kids were from well-to-do background, as is expected. But something happened in early 2016. I was driving to church, and I was driving past K2, and I was just looking as I was sitting in the car in the traffic. I was watching children with oranges on their head, wares that weren't. I mean, if they sold everything they had on their head, or they had on them for the whole day, total turnover won't be more than $10 or £10.
Yes.
And it just didn't make sense to me. I asked myself as I was sitting in the car, how can you apply all your learning, all your training to transforming these lives?
Yeah.
And I said, these are not the ones, what you are doing currently with children of the rich won't work with this one. They can't pay.
Yeah.
But if you can bring them to an environment like you have provided, I trained the children of the rich in environments that looked similar to what I had experienced doing my MBA in Dublin.
Okay.
And so I said, if you can bring them to environments like that, transform their imagination, transform their imagery, and
give them hope.
Give them hope.
Yeah.
And so that's the vision.
Yeah.
So that's what we decided to do. And so I said, look, I'm going to go ahead. It's going to be free, and I'm going to get kids, and I'm going to, the kids of drivers, the kids of poor people, the kids that were out of school. I got my staff. I said, Monday to Friday, walk the streets, look for children who ought to be in school and who are not in school, and find out why they are not in school.
Yeah.
And we did that, and we're able to get together about 50 children. Now, when we got about 50 children who were not in school, the next challenge is, how do I teach them? I found out not too long. I brought a few children experts together from churches, from non-churches. I've never really coached children at this level, and especially from the educational background that they were coming from. So I brought people together who will do the work. I needed money. I set up a social media group. On social media, I raised about 2 million naira. I can't get how much that will turn to in pounds right away.
Okay.
I got a little money, and but it remained difficult. One of the immediate challenge was, look, a class full of 50 people who were out of school might just be impossible to motivate. So what we decided to do, we opened up. We went to the media and asked children to come in. We wanted to do a mix of children who were in school, poor, rich, and all that, and mix with these kids. So we did a residence boarding system for about 32 children, 34 children.
Okay, for how long?
For 3 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, full boarding, and that was the beginning of where we started.
Fantastic.
It was intensive, 24 hours resident, monitoring their life. We got matrons, we looked after them, free feeding, free hostel accommodation and all that.
So what was the outcome for the children who didn't have jobs, who were not in school? What was the outcome for them after the 3 weeks?
It was great. And what we did for the ones who were, for some of them, they had parents who were discouraged, were able to get them back to public schools.
Okay.
For some of them, public schools just can't help them. And we put adverts on social media, and we were very fortunate we got people who took up their school.
Because that's the issue, isn't it? There's no such thing as free education, really. We're fortunate in this country to have a system that works, that provides good basic, even more than basic education, that it's free. And we don't seem to have that in Africa, some parts of Africa.
You don't have near what you have in the UK. Not near it. So
do you think when it comes to gang culture, why is it then that we have children who are forming gangs here? Is there such thing in Nigeria? From your experience, do you have children who are violent towards each other and have rival gangs, and you can't come to this area because we're in charge of this area? And I think they're called area boys, right? Some of them are called area boys. I don't know, that's the terminology. But I don't know if it's the same sort of concept in terms of age range.
I think that the gangs exist in both rich and poor neighborhoods.
Yeah.
It's just the forces driving gangs in these neighborhoods are different. In poor societies, you have in the poor communities, you have area boys, people who feel left out by the society. And my younger brother, who is a lawyer, said crime is one of the weapons by which the poor wants to equalize with the rich.
Interesting.
That's one of his dissertation in LLM criminology.
Okay.
So that's the weapon they have to equalize with the rich.
They see it as a means to try to get to that level.
Yes. You have to get, crime becomes a means.
Yeah.
So you have people who belong to, in working in poor areas, I've seen people who have joined gangs, violent gangs, as a means to protect themselves, as a means to defend themselves from danger. But I have also seen in rich places where it's not driven by that same sentiment. The children of the rich, I'll give an example in Ikoyi and Victoria Island in Lagos.
Yeah.
They are driven by a certain sense of entitlement.
Okay.
Which is... Now, my wife is an emergency doctor, and I remember in one situation, working at the Reddington Hospital, she got a call, quickly, get to so and so in Ikoyi now. A 17-year-old boy has just shot himself.
What?
Now, by the time he got there, he called the managing director. He said, "Oh, sir, he's dead." Now, that guy was the son of a very, very wealthy Nigerian.
Did he commit suicide?
He committed suicide.
Oh wow! Now
those are kids that if you look at what is driving that one, it is not we're looking for protection. There is one of these affluent schools on Alexander in Ikoyi, and a 10-year-old boy who was being brought to school in Nigeria. Power status is a lot of it's not so pronounced here in the UK.
Yeah.
But power distance and power status has a lot to do with the way people live. Yeah. A child who's been brought to work by brought to school with a 4x4 Jeep came out on a certain day and saw a Toyota Corolla to pick him. He said he's not entering.
Wow.
And there was strong hold up on Alexander and Ikoyi. Why are you not entering? He said, my father cannot send this car to pick me.
Okay.
Now, you see, it took a lot of persuasion from the principal.
Yeah.
That is a sense of entitlement.
Yes.
Now, there are these kids. I was speaking somewhere 2 months ago, and I said, I think in my short experience working with the children of the rich and the children of the poor, that the problem with the children of the rich seem to be more dangerous to society than the children of the poor.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. We're going to go on a quick break, and then afterwards we're going to introduce our lovely lady Dawn, who has been agreeing with lots of the points that I'm hearing. Yes. So we're going to a quick break, and then we'll come back and we introduce you.
It's here, the African Gospel Music and Media Awards 2018, celebrating excellence. On the 2nd of June 2018, at East London Arts and Music Main Auditorium, 45 Maltings Close, Bromley by Bow, London, E3 3TA, from 6 p.m, featuring Joe Beto, Diana Hamilton, Isabella, Called Out Music, Shekinah, Dena Mwanga, Afri David, Angel Bernard, Judith Sefuma, Blessing Ali, and Reapers Choir. For tickets and information, visit AfricanGospelMusicAwards.com or call 07906 932 670. The African Gospel Music and Media Awards 2018, celebrating excellence.
Clap your hands and dance it.
The Discourse on ABN Radio, engaging our community with discerning conversation.
Join me, Esther Alade, on The Discourse, where we will be redefining perspectives with authentic analysis.
Join The Discourse from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. on ABN Radio.
This Friday and every Friday on ABN Radio, London's Afropolitan radio station. Tune in to the new ABN Breakfast Show from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. The London City Show has evolved into an all-new breakfast show with sizzling stories of juicy news, current affairs, served with junior jumbo-sized convos on issues you should be aware of. What did I just say? The ABN Breakfast Show, the Afropolitan breakfast you can't afford to miss.
Yes, so you're back on The Discourse with me, Esther Alade, and I'm here with Dawn Ruby and Mr. Tunde Ekukberede. Ekbekurede. That's better.
Mr. E for short.
Yeah. Mr. T.
Without the gold chain.
Mr. T.E. Okay. So now I'm going to introduce a lovely Dawn. You were talking to us just before the break in regard to the difference and that from children who are from poor backgrounds, from your experience, or generally in terms of your brother's analogy as a criminologist, is that crime is a way of leveling up. It's a means to try and achieve what the rich have. So you're trying to come out of your socio-economic situation. Yeah. And regards to the rich, for them, it's with the children, it's a sense of entitlement and trying to maybe have a sense of who they are. Was that what you were trying to say in terms of the rich children?
There is an awful misguided sense of entitlement.
Okay.
Then maybe because the parents are very busy making money, there is an awful breakdown of the family system.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So the children, I found out, I've run about on both sides of the aisle, poor and rich. I've run about three camp sessions now, boot camps for kids. Now, in disciplined poor homes, you are amazed to see how children are afraid of their parents. But in rich homes, sometimes these are people who hardly see their parents.
Okay, so there's no parent to parents.
Yes.
There's other people raising their children.
There are other people, there are gadgets raising their children.
So there was
social media raising their children.
So probably they don't have the values.
Good.
The what you would install in your own children yourself.
They don't have the values that you would find in a proper home.
Yeah.
Where the family unit is functioning.
Okay, so let's bring Dawn into it. Good morning.
Good morning.
Looking very glamorous this morning.
Thank you very much.
Love the Atlanta look. She's bringing that Atlanta look to us.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a bit about you and how you got to where you are today.
Okay, thank you very much. I must say, first of all, it's a privilege to be on air with the lovely Esther and Mr. T.E.
Yeah, we're going to stick to T.E.
We're going to stick with Mr. T.E. My name is Mrs. Dawn Oronsaye Roby. Now, I am a daughter of two Nigerian parents. So, I mean, sometimes when I'm in America, they're like, oh, are you Nigerian? I'm like, yeah. They're like, I said, both my parents are Nigerian, although I have a British accent. But, I lived in the UK for several years, and then I emigrated to America, Atlanta to be precise, or suburbs of Atlanta, because I would say demographics is really important in terms of, and I think Mr. T.E. mentioned it, as opposed to where you live, we'll talk a bit about that later in terms of the crime in inner cities in Atlanta and the suburbs. There's a big difference.
Because you can compare that as well, because you've experienced living in the UK and London.
Oh, yes.
And then to you know, because as I said to you, that from my perception of what I see, it's all media driven, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's why it's important that we have a good narrative or we have a balanced view. And that's why I always try to talk about solutions, what we know within a community, and ensure that is also fed out there. But I know from speaking to you, I had this impression, I don't know if most people do, and maybe it's me being ignorant in terms of American culture. You kind of perceive it to be, lots of single mothers. It's not much family units, and you know there's lots of gun crime, black crime. You know,
and to be honest, sometimes at home in the evening when you're watching the local news, that's all you hear. You hear about stabbings. You hear about shootings. You hear about black on black crime. You know, and as I said, it just depends on demographics. It depends on, there's so many dynamics come into play. It depends on cultural, it depends on economics. But I will say that, yes, I did live in the UK, but I also schooled in Nigeria for some time. You know, I got caught up in this sort of, you know, the crime back then was different to the crime to the crime now. We would just mess around, and our parents were calling us to come in, and we'll play knockdown ginger, or we'll kind of like drapes up some people, you know, threaten to take their jewelry. But it's all in, you know, just a bit of fun. We would never dream of harming anyone, you know, or, you know, let alone taking a life. So I schooled in Nigeria for the best part of my secondary school as well. So in terms of my experiences, it's shaped by my Nigerian background. You know, where as I'm a mother of 2 and a grandmother as well, and I also have 3 nephews, actually 4 nephews. So back then, I mean, they're actually early 20s. The youngest is coming up to 16, but it was a saying like, it takes a village to raise a child. It's not like now where everyone minds their own business. So
that's a good point, actually. But are we having that? I think that happens a lot in Nigeria, in terms of you assume it's a community that would help to raise a child. But it's not. People turn a blind eye. And one thing I don't personally like is the continuous circle, the cycle of deprivation. So you see a young child who's born into poverty. Then that child is treated a certain way because they're born into poverty. And it continues. And people talk down to them. I hate that. I hate seeing that. Oh, that child is poor, so you treat that child differently. You maltreat that child, or those are the children who are likely to be, I guess, house help, for example. But yet they're not treated with respect because of their situation. They didn't pray to. It's not their fault that they were born in that situation.
That's right. That's right.
So I think that's one thing I don't like. But also, I think, I don't know if I see a sense of community all the time in Nigeria. I think people pick and choose who they want to help.
It used to be there. You see, I don't know, with growth, I don't know whether industrialization this breaks down, makes us more individualistic. Communal living does not seem to be like it was 20, 30 years ago.
That's right.
Communal life is getting more individual. Gone are the days when I remember as a kid in those states, we could just go to our neighbor's house and the father, the parents of my friends could rebuke me, correct me, even flog me. But that doesn't exist anymore. I can't imagine in today's Nigeria that you are flogging the child of another person.
That would be havoc. And I don't think you can even do that here, because obviously social work, social services.
I think that's just like
that's a no-go area.
The idea that it takes a village to raise a child,
it's a bit antiquated.
It's questionable, right?
Yes, absolutely. But I mean, that's how it was, you know, growing up. When I lived in Nigeria and I did something wrong, my parents would call their relatives, and I would have all these aunties and uncles come from nowhere to give me a good beating.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, my goodness, child abuse. There was no such thing back then.
Yeah.
It was like, you respect your elders, you do as you're told, or you face the consequences. And I must say that because I'm a minister, first of all, as well, so I have to always bring the Bible and Christian principles. I think, you know, we have left that. You know, and we have left the standards, and for example, in terms of teaching our children to respect others, to be kind to others, but it's such a dog-eat world nowadays, and you know, it's a very, it's changing times basically. So
do you think people are leaving religion out of it?
Yes.
And maybe people are not so religious anymore, and maybe that's having an effect in the how children be raised or what they see as right or wrong in the community in the UK?
Well, I know you were contemplating a response, Mr. T.E., but when you think about values now, I mean, coming back from Atlanta to London, London itself has changed. It could be because of immigration, but I remember when our parents used to teach us to stand up for someone older than us on the bus, you know, and open the door for people, and just be generally kind and give maybe 5 pence to someone begging on the street, you know, and things have changed now. And I think and I know we're going to later on talk about family unit. I think it's so important to instill those values. You know, the reason why I say the Bible is because you know, it's because everyone has their own standard of what is good and moral. Yeah. So if we follow one standard, which is the Creator's, we can't go wrong, and we can't get different interpretations or different perspectives and different ways. Yeah. Because one man's meat is another person's poison. So if we have one standard and we try and adhere to that, we surely, you know, I'm not saying it's foolproof, but we will make little mistakes.
Yeah, I agree with that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree perfectly. If we follow the Bible, I think we wouldn't, that's for sure, we wouldn't have the problems that we have today in society. Now, that said, but the problem hasn't just been from those who are not following the Bible. Yeah. There are also children of those who are trying to follow the Bible, but who haven't had the time to raise children.
Absolutely. Yeah. I agree.
I think if I look at the way my life has evolved, sometimes at the beginning stage of raising children as a man, you are caught up looking for money. Okay. And it looks like thinking about children looks secondary. Well, the school, they are going to school, drop them there. Yeah. But sometimes it comes as a surprise when at a certain age it looks like the kids aren't growing up the way
you would like them to.
And if you don't have a mechanism to intervene quickly, when it becomes too late, I'm really sorry, you will regret all the money that you've made.
Yes, that's an interesting point. Yeah. But it's difficult because we've spoken on this show about single parenting, and not alone single parenting, but families in general. Primarily, like you just said, you want to make sure the bills are covered because you need to make sure your home is kept. So parents are worried more so in terms of ensuring that enough income is coming in. Yeah. So not everybody finds that balance because if you don't work, then your children, it's still kind of like, oh, if you can't afford to have the best for them, you know, are they still going to go wayward? You know, we've had examples of people who have literally turned their lives around, but know for sure, and have openly said that their mum was a single parent, and then because there wasn't enough money in the home, they formed gangs, went into petty crimes, but from petty crime it grew. But with that crime money, they would come home and give it to their mother. You know, their mum would know, she would have an inkling, but would not question. Yeah. Because she needed that money.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really...
Yeah, the problem has a lot of faces. I have seen parents compromise. Yes. Where they know for certain that the kids are doing what is wrong. I don't want to prejudge the recent the recent media stories on popular kidnapper in Nigeria, Evans. Some of the stories I read online, the mother is a recipient of some of his...
But did she know? I don't think she knew.
There is no way you will not know. She knew what
he was actually up to.
She knew what the son was doing.
Oh, gosh.
That he's kidnapping rich people, asking for ransom, and he's built her house. So there are times, there are stories I've read.
Yeah.
That Evans is a bit grown up, but I've seen for children when the parents know for sure that my son is in a gang, and this is what they do, and this is how he gets the money. But one, especially where the mother is single, and look, there is no. I've seen poverty situations that I don't even have the solution. That when I'm called to counsel, I know the mother knows what the son is doing. Yeah. But I don't even know what to tell the mother how to get income. I don't even have the answer.
Yes.
So there are complex scenarios. In the UK here, there are safety nets where you could fall to. But in the developing countries, such safety nets don't exist.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yes. I mean, I totally agree, Mr. T.E., that, because... it's about money, isn't it? It's about wealth. It's about status. I wasn't able to come back to you about when Esther talked about the purpose of gangs. Is it for identity, security, or whatever? But yes, I mean, there's a whole lot of dynamics, lots of variables that come into play. But certainly, I think status and wealth and money, because I know we're talking about family unit, but we can instill, and I wanted to say, I know I did harp on about the Bible, and I'm just looking at all perspectives, basically. Yeah. I am a realist as well, so I'm not just going to try and Bible bash. We have to be, we have to be very, very real about the situation, because you can spare the rod, spoil the child, and discipline and flog, which, as Esther rightly pointed out, there are limits also now. You'll find yourself in prison, for child abuse. But what I'm saying is that we can instill all these values, and they go outside, and we cannot control who they interact with. Yeah. We cannot control their classmates in the school setting. So we can only control our household and what the values we instill. And it's worked pretty much for the most part for my household in terms of training a child the way they should go, and but there are outside influences, and money is one of those. You mentioned about sometimes parents are aware, especially single parents, but because they can't afford to buy the latest Michael Jordan trainer, so they'll they won't question because the child doesn't. I mean, my poor first daughter, she always says, I wish she was the second daughter, because you mentioned about when you were first became a dad, you wanted to just make money. I was just busy working. I didn't really have time, and trying to make ends meet. And I wasn't interested in really her needs, as in, I was interested in her needs, but not her wants. So she will go, she will be put in Woolworth clothes or cheap things, as opposed to spending too much money. But nowadays, children don't want to wait for. They need the designer labels. Yeah. They need the We're living in a
microwave world, aren't we? Everything has to be quick.
Yes. Quick. They don't want to go through and I mean, it's debatable whether it works, the system of going to school, going to college, going to university, waiting for that graduate job, and so there's temptation out there. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to quickly harp on the issue of children having external influences. Yeah. Now, this is my personal opinion that the external influences are there, but the 95% of the responsibility of how a child turns out rests on the parents.
I agree. Yeah, I would even
because what really happens is that when parents abdicate their responsibility, now the child has to learn from somewhere. Yes. Now, if all is learning, I was in Manchester last week, and I was in a parenting seminar, and one of the questions asked was, my daughter listens to voices outside more than mine. What should I do?
Yes.
My wife was sitting by my side, so I said to my wife, oh, she missed it when the daughter was growing up. It's really difficult now.
Okay.
Now, because you have to, you see, when we were growing up, the boundaries were set by our parents.
Yes.
No matter what I learned, I remember my senior brother, my elder brother, finished from University of Lagos, read law. When he started smoking, he couldn't smoke when he came home.
Yes.
This is a graduate now.
That's right.
And he's married at this time.
Yes.
When he came to see my dad, after smoking, he would sit under the tree for 30 minutes licking tom-tom.
Yes, I know. I'm laughing because I can relate to that. I mean, I stopped smoking. I was a heavy smoker. I stopped about 10 years ago. But, oh gosh, I would never, even though I'm in my old age, if I was smoking, I would never do anything like that in front of my parents. Even though I could say, well, I'm a big, I'm an adult. You can't tell me what to do.
Was it fair or was it respect?
Oh, it was respect.
Okay. You see,
and fair.
Yeah, you see, I've done a lot of studies on psychology. The cornerstone of what you come out in life are set at the early age.
Yes.
In fact, there is a research work written by Grunstead. It's a professor in Minnesota, and he said most of what will end up as your life outcome is already formed by the time you are 10.
Wow.
So now, and more often than not, from formation to 10, that is when your parents don't have time for you in today's culture. So the time to put the building blocks, this is what to do and this is not what to do, the parent is busy. Now, sometimes he's made the money. Now he says he wants to put the building blocks.
Yeah.
But the block is...
It's too late.
It's too
Absolutely.
late.
I mean, even from, medical staff, they always say even in the womb, parents should talk to their unborn babies. Yeah. Their brains are already being formed and it's like a sponge ready to absorb all of this.
Yeah.
So we can't leave it until later when you've got time or when you've built enough a healthy bank balance.
Yeah.
So it'll be too late because, as you said, Mr. T, there are outside influences.
Yeah.
And it is true. I think I always nag. Even my daughter's like in her 30s and I still nag her, and she's like, and, because that's what I know. You speak the truth in love as a parent.
Yeah,
I can't leave it to teachers. I can't leave it to, you never stop being a parent. And that is me. That's how I was raised. From when I stop nagging and giving advice and challenging, that means I don't love you. I don't care. And I think the problem nowadays, parents want to be their children's friends. They want to be best friends with their child. You can't do both. I'm not saying be enemies so that when your child has a problem, there's no one to go to. They go to someone else. They should be comfortable and know that feel secure in your love that they can come to you. Oh, Mom, look, I'm pregnant. What do I do? Yeah. Not find out from someone else they had an abortion in the backstreet clinic because they're scared of you. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll talk about steps then. So what have you both done? You both have children. You both spoke about your children. Yeah. And you mentioned that children's opinions or morals or values are formed from the age of the age of 10. So what have you done that you ensured that your children, I'm assuming that your children are not
not in prison or drug dealers.
Not that we should laugh at that fact, but your children are not in gangs, or you haven't had major issues as some parents may be going through. So what steps have you ensured to make sure that's not the outcome for your children? And what would you advise? What has worked for you?
Okay. Now, from my personal experience, I would say I got in late in taking intentional interest in my children. I remember when the children were young, I was trying to even be their friend. And that sometimes I was at loggerheads with my wife. Yes. Because I thought, oh, no, they don't need this discipline. Leave them. And later on, I began to see that I was wrong. I was fortunate to know early that I was wrong. And I was fortunate that my wife did not toe my line, because if she toed my line, I think I might be chasing children in prison right now.
Oh, wow.
But I'm glad she kept the rod.
Yeah.
And what is a fellow said, we are preparing for marriage, but many times we are not taught any of the responsibilities.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Get married.
Yeah, that's
but there's no
Yeah.
tools to equip you.
Yes,
Make
yes.
sure you know how to finance, how you budget, how you work with
Good.
somebody,
How you work together
all of
to
that.
raise
Yeah.
children as well.
I think that there is I don't know of European universities, but I know in Nigerian universities there is the general studies course.
Okay.
I think the general studies course should incorporate parenting.
Interesting.
General studies, I don't know, University of Benin, or whether you're reading medicine or engineering, you must take GS 101, GS 102. I think those general studies course, people need to know, because it's getting really serious. Now, you can't you become an adult, you are just aware. You finished an MBA from a prestigious school, but it's just all the business strategy.
Side of things.
Now, but the real thing for an enduring future is raising good children.
Yeah.
Now, I always say in some of the places I've been opportune to speak, that a chain is just as strong as the weakest link. And if the weakest link in society are vulnerable children, gang crime, then society is not safe.
Yeah.
Now, if what will make the society safe, we know very little about it, then there's a problem. Now, so for me, as early as when teenagers are in university, they need to start learning. Because like Mr. Ronsaye said, even when the baby is being formed in the womb, I was speaking somewhere recently and I said, I was talking to would-be mothers in Nigeria and I said, look, I was talking on stress management. You need to maintain the level of stress. That, look, premature births, abnormal kids has to do with many times the level of stress you are going through as a mother.
Okay.
That parenting does not start from when the child is born. It starts while the child is in the womb.
Developing.
Now, we get married. I got married and I wasn't thinking about all this.
Yeah.
I was just a member of the Christian Union. Marriage was just a way to get legal sex.
Yes.
Nothing more. I knew nothing. I didn't. Okay, now it's going to be legal. Nobody's going to tell me I'm committing sin.
Yeah.
There's nothing, no fornication.
Yeah. It's there when you need it. When you want it.
You're just going. But there is a lot more responsibility.
Yeah.
So it looked like, after the day of the wedding,
Yeah, I've done the deed.
Consummate the wedding.
Certificate is gone.
First night, that's it. But yeah, the last thing you think about coming together, raising children, and yes, Esther, it's so important. Because you mentioned about being on loggerheads, and I know I've had both sides of the coin. I've raised children as a single mother.
Yeah.
And I've raised children as a married. I'm currently married, and and I think it does help. I mean, I'm not knocking, because I was actually fine as a single parent. I was working. I wasn't on any benefits, and I was on my own house and driving, and I just thought I was doing all right.
Yeah.
But there are definitely some benefits. But I mean, having said that, you when you are, even if you're not married and you're co-parenting and you've got a boyfriend or girlfriend or partner, you have to be on the same page. In terms of agreeing how you're going to raise your child. Don't just have a baby. And most times, it just happens. And the lesser of two evils is not to have an abortion.
Yeah.
And no one really sits down to think, what do we agree? What kind of morals? What kind of values? So that's so important. But they need to be on the same page. And raising good children is a product of you. I mean, if people speak badly on my children, that reflects on me, that I haven't raised them well.
Yeah.
In America, they at school, Destiny always says, "Oh, Mum," they always say I'm so polite, because we were taught to say please and thank you. And everything mostly is generational. You pass on, your values to your children, and then their children to their children.
Yeah.
So time is a factor as well. I don't know if it. Obviously, I think it does help when both parents are actively involved. I mean, you know, when, as I said, when I was single, I was actually all right, to be honest. Sometimes you don't.
Was their father involved? Would you mind talking about that part?
I think most of the time nowadays, because I had to consider that the father was involved, but he was more stressed than it was worth.
Okay.
You know, there was inconsistencies. There was all kind of, when he came along, there was drama.
Yeah.
And it's one step forward, 10 steps backward.
Okay.
And I think most single parents sort of like say to themselves, well, you're
What's the
doing more
point?
harm than good.
Yeah.
So it just depends. I suppose you can
because I think some of the points people are raising is that in terms of the youth crime and why it's been so the epidemic. They're saying it's an epidemic is because lack of father figures in the home, lack of proper parenting in the home, but more so because we're seeing young men. People are saying because there aren't many father figures. Yeah. And some of the points that we've had raised on the show is that actually you need to think from inception. Yes. Who am I getting with? Yes. Does this person does he have children before? And if he does have children, is he actually active in their lives? Because if he's not, why are you choosing him to be your child's parent? Yes. Because the pattern will persist and it will continue. And another thing is, are you getting consent? Because, you know, if you're both consenting adults, why are you even having sex unprotectedly anyway? And if you do so and you choose to have the baby, is the other party involved? Yes. Because I think some men have a sense of resentment. I didn't want the child. Why are you having this child? Yes. You know, why do I now have to be responsible for a child that I didn't want in the first place? But really, responsibility should have been taken in the first instance. Absolutely. To ensure that that was not the outcome. Yes. So I think the question I was trying to ask you is that as a single mother, because we hear more stories about single mothers, we do know that there are single fathers out there as well, but it's more so single mothers. Yes. Why wasn't the father involved? You know, but you said because maybe it was more drama. But did that have an effect on your children? And would it have done if they were boys?
Well, that's a good point, because I think as a mother, there's only so much you can do with sons. Yeah. You know, I think even the physiology makeup, if that's a word, physiological. Yeah. You know, we're biologically different anyway. Our hormones are different. So we can't just exclude. And sometimes single mums, single parents, single fathers need to get over themselves and let the other, especially if they have something good to offer. If the person's just a crackhead and just swearing and no morals and just you're trying to do a good job and they come and they're hindering that. Then I'm sorry, I would have to close the door. Yeah. But I would say that as a single mother, I was focused. I had morals, I had values, and I had other members of the family as well. So
you had family units around you?
Yes, I had big brothers and they were uncles and they would step in. Yeah. I would say if it can be at all, if it's possible, in every respect, bring the other parent in. Yeah. Because I think the Bible says 2 heads are better than one. Yeah. You know, but as a single parent, sometimes it's out of your control. Maybe they're not interested. Maybe they just wanted to have a good time. Yeah. Didn't expect that the baby will come from it. Exactly. And then they're not ready for that. Yeah. And maybe they have a baby outside. And I think there's a lot of, as you said, Esther, from inception, it's so important. We shouldn't be in a rush to just sort of have sex with people. Yeah. We need to value ourselves as women and check out the person
and
first.
Men as well.
And men. Actually. But I think it's more, it's true. I mean, the men, I think they have, yes, I know, I'm not sort of.
Okay, as a man, Mr. T, what is your viewpoint?
Well, I usually say that the problems in society are a bit complex. Okay. I think women think about family more than men. Yes. Yeah. When the adrenaline is rushing in a man, he doesn't think. Yes. He doesn't think. No, the pleasure has to happen now. Okay. Don't delay it by 1 minute. Yeah. That's not the time to lecture a man. So, years down, he's hearing of the consequences. And years down the line.
So he doesn't even know from when the child is.
He doesn't know. Oh my God. No, he doesn't know. Even not when you tell him there's pregnancy. He doesn't know. But that's where I think a little bit of education will do. Yeah. A little bit. That's why I said, if our current general studies is structured, I look at my own personal deficiency. not any thought about. I can't remember that I picked a book on how to raise children when I was thinking of marriage. No, the church I attended warned me on fornication and going to hell. So I was waiting for a certificate.
Put fear into you.
Yeah, put fear into you.
I was waiting for a certificate, a license to practice.
Yes.
I wasn't thinking of in-service training.
Yeah.
So I think a little bit of training would help. And to be honest, there are sometimes, like I said earlier on, I've been faced with situations where I just even didn't. I had no advice to render. Sometimes there are real challenges.
Yeah.
The child is there, the woman is single, the man has no interest, the child is a boy, and it's just so difficult for mothers to raise boys. Now, when community structures were there, when community living existed, my uncle could warn me. He didn't need to be my daddy.
Yes.
Yeah, but now it's not there.
No.
So all the mother needed to do, growing up then, even a single mother could just, look, this is a son. I'm going to give my son to my brother to raise, who has a family too. But it's difficult into this.
Yeah,
that you take your son and to your brother who has a wife and his own children.
Yeah.
To this society, the structure of society is changing.
Yes.
And I really see a lot of challenges ahead. The structure is changing. People are getting more individual.
Selfish as well.
Yes.
Some years ago, here in the UK, I was in a counseling situation, and there was this young lady. I mean, the father has left, and I asked her why she was asking me for a job. Oh, she said the mother just pushed her out. Why would your mother push you out? The father has left. The mother was about getting. The mother is having a relationship now.
Okay, a new relationship.
A new relationship. And this is British.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the new suitor wants to sleep with the daughter.
Oh my goodness.
And she made a decision that the daughter has to leave.
Oh, wow.
As opposed to leave the man.
Yeah. Now, you see, these are issues of individual judgment.
Yes.
I know in another situation where a friend of mine wanted to proposed to marry to a single mother with 2 daughters. And the single mother said, I am not going to think about marriage until I've raised these 2 girls. Now, so a lot of complex societal issues. She's going to forfeit her own pleasure and enjoyment and all that.
To focus on raising her children.
And the other situation, she says,
she put
you can't be a stumbling
first.
block to me. You have your own life to live, so go find your life somewhere. And she's underage.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So, but these are real issues. So sometimes it's difficult. So this is right, this is wrong. People have their lives to live.
Yeah.
It's just that our actions are causing greater problem for the greater society.
Or our lack of action.
Our lack of action.
As well.
So, action or inaction is causing problems somewhere in society.
Yeah. Esther, I think there was something years ago about the government trying, because there used to be a lot of teenage pregnancies. I don't know how the statistics are now. I think it's reduced now. I think people are waiting until they're a bit older. But I know that there used to be lots of talk about parenting classes and things. I think that would be a good idea, although that would not sort of completely address the individual stuff. You know, everyone's got different, as you mentioned, different things going on. Yeah. You know, different preferences, different how they're going to, what they're going to instill in their child. But I think in terms of, I think the parenting classes should instill about crime, how to be a law-abiding citizen. I think that should be an essential component of parenting, not just how to change a nappy.
Yeah. I think that would be good, but I think the argument now that people are having is that we know there's been a lot of government cuts.
Yes.
So there aren't youth clubs, there aren't organisations. They're not giving money to grassroots organisations that used to help children in disadvantaged areas. where you have youth leaders who would be able to say, oh, you know, this is how this should be if you have any issues, because we know that mothers work.
Yes.
So children will have somewhere to go to as opposed to be on the streets.
Yes.
So the issue now is that because the youth clubs are all closed, they don't have anywhere to go. So they're forming gangs, apparently.
Yes. And they're bored, aren't they? I mean, what else?
Yeah.
Not everybody wants. I mean, back in the day, it was Grange Hill, you know, showing my age, you know, or a latchkey kid. You got the key and you just sit in front of the telly. But nowadays, people are stimulated, and you've got all kinds of technology and social media that's enticing people.
Yeah.
But, you know, this is where I think I've seen a difference of UK living and American living. In fact, even
I'm
just...
going to stop your thought process there. So we'll go on a quick break. We're going to news break.
ABN Radio, London's Afropolitan radio station.
More news, more information. This is ABN News on the Hour.
The Sky News Centre at 9. The government insists selective schools aren't getting more funding per child, despite plans to give grammars more money. Those in England will receive £50 million to expand and create new places. Teaching unions want state schools to get more cash, saying the system's at breaking point. But the Education Secretary says selective schools actually have less funding on average at the moment.
We need more good school places, and those can be in new voluntary aided schools. It could be in one of the new wave of free schools, but also it should be possible for selective schools to expand as it is possible for those others. It's about where the parental demand is, where the need is.
The pro-Brexit group Leave.eu has been fined £70,000 for incorrectly reporting what it spent during the 2016 referendum campaign. The Electoral Commission says it's also found reasonable grounds to suspect a criminal offence has been committed. 7 people, including 4 children, have been found dead with gunshot wounds at a farm in Western Australia. Police have described the incident in Margaret River as a horrific tragedy. Donald Trump says he's putting the harshest and strongest sanctions on Iran. The US president's pulled America out of the nuclear deal with the country. It eased limits on Tehran in return for curbs on its weapons program. Mr. Trump says he eventually hopes to reach a fair agreement.
We cannot allow them to have nuclear weapons. We must be able to go to a site and check that site. We have to be able to go into their military bases to see whether or not they're cheating.
The London mayor wants to tackle what he calls the ticking time bomb of childhood obesity by getting rid of junk food advertising on the city's transport system. And Russia has failed to qualify for the Eurovision final for the first time. Sweden, Australia and the Netherlands are among those who made it through. That's the latest. I'm Victoria Lawrence.
So we're back here on the Discourse with me, Esther Alade, and I've been talking to Dawn and Mr. Tunde. We've been calling him Mr. T.E. I hope he doesn't mind. I think he doesn't mind.
I don't mind.
And we've been talking about youth crime and also the importance of family units. Now, both of them have taken us through in terms of their experience and what they feel should be the solution. You've spoken about your personal experiences in terms of how you raise your children, what you feel work. You also talked about, Dawn, you being a single parent, but not necessarily being single, but having your family there to help you to step in. And that maybe the story may have been different if you had boys, because you have girls, but we don't know. But you think not.
Had uncles, they had uncles in their lives.
They had uncles that would, be able to be there. And likewise, you said, and Mr. T, that in terms of Nigeria, people used to be able to be open about what they're going through, and families were able to step in. But we're seeing the change in the society and structure, and people have been much more individualized, I guess, if that's the right word to use, and we're becoming more insular, a bit more selfish. And maybe people are thinking more about money. It's all about material stuff now, isn't it? And when we said it's about a microwave world we're living in terms of children, they've seen people flossing, so they want to floss too, rather than seeing no one shows the hard work. No one is showing you that actually to get to A and B, you've got to work for it. There's a process. Nothing comes overnight. And maybe a lot of things that we're seeing with social media is get rich quick, or people pretending. Actually, there's a lot of pretense.
Yes,
because I you know, we all know that we all put our best parts on social media. You know, quick selfie.
Absolutely, you're all made up, you're all done up, your hair's on fleek,
makeup's looking good, you're feeling good. So you post it up, post it, and people are like, oh, you're looking good. Yeah, for that day, I'm looking good.
Yeah.
You know, if you see me 5 o'clock this morning,
exactly,
it's a different story. So really being real with children, I guess, and letting them know that what you see, what glitters is not gold. All that glitters is not gold, and that, you know, reality is this. Because I think there's another research that's been saying that people's viewpoints or realities have been skewed a little bit because children are seeing social media as real life, and it's not real life. No one's showing the behind the scenes of what's really going on. So we've spoken about steps that you've taken that you think could help. So we can talk a bit more about your projects and maybe have some comparisons, because you've had good outcomes from that. We've also spoken to grassroots organizations here who are doing amazing things. So that's the whole point, also to highlight people who are doing great stuff and us talk about solutions and steps. And you have a prime example of the Nigerian goalkeeper who's coming from one of your projects. Yeah. So is he from a disadvantaged background, or is he
disadvantaged?
Really?
Yeah. So, for Daniel Akpeyi, he was at the time he joined the club we were setting up then. He's the father and mother were split.
Okay.
And to make ends meet, the mother had migrated from Sapele to Lagos and has left him with his grandmother.
Okay.
Who was uneducated, who he was doing nothing. By the time he was 14, somebody told him, oh, Tunde Ikpekurede Foundation are getting youths to come and play football at Sapele Athletic Club. Will you come and join? So he just came one afternoon and he was standing by. We said, what can you do?
Yeah.
He said, I can keep. And we put it, mind the goalpost. He was such a zealous young man for success.
Yeah.
Many of the times, for half of the time he came for the practice, we had to give him food.
Okay.
We had to pay his transport back home. Then we had to also give him something to eat.
Okay.
But he was a young man who had seen hunger.
Okay.
And he was zealous to succeed.
Okay.
What he had going for him, there was the absence of food, but he had good morals as a foundation.
Okay.
He was such a humble guy, willing to do anything, just looking for a way. He had the vision to help his grandmother who was looking after him and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Now, just before you went on break, we're talking about courts, in government courts. Now, if I look at some of the things we are doing right now, we have 2 youth centers right now.
In Nigeria.
Yeah, in Nigeria, we're looking at setting up more.
Yeah.
And those 2 youth centers are drawing pupils, children, averagely to about 240 per week right now.
That's a lot.
That's that. Now, what has happened before now is children don't have where to go. I continually think of the changes.
Yeah.
Growing up, we go and play football. Now, nowhere to play. No, everybody is to themselves. Yeah. Selfies won't raise a child.
Yes.
And for the poor, social media just means increased mental pressure.
Yes.
Because they don't have it. Now, it makes you even want to steal.
Yeah.
But what we've been able to do, we are trying to bring hope.
Okay.
Now, what the government in Nigeria calls free education, to quote one of these African heads of state, it's education that is free of knowledge. That's what they mean by free education. The education has no knowledge.
Oh my goodness.
What irony.
So that is really what they are calling free education.
Oh, wow.
Now, but what we are trying to do, in working last March 2017, the Delta State Governor gave us approval and permission to work with all public schools in the state. Now, that is a friend said to me, Tunde, that nobody can take over the job of the government, so you can't get all the kids inspired. But what we are doing right now, we are bringing projects that reignite the interest of kids. We have these youth centers, but the youth centers, 240 for me, it's not if I'm thinking of reaching about 2 million kids in Nigeria, 240 looks like I'm not doing anything.
Yeah.
So, but last year we started an English spelling competition. English is so poor in Nigeria, I can't explain why.
Wow.
Now, especially in public schools. So what we did, we started this spelling bee competition. The first one we organized last year in Sapele in Delta State. Now, about 46 primary schools took part, and what we did working on our experience is that teachers themselves needed to be motivated. You are teaching in a school 6 months, there is no salary. What's your motivation? I still know some teachers who were, to till date, when I was in primary school, are like my heroes. The floggings, the beatings, the discipline. But today's teachers have no, in developing countries, not all, but especially in public schools, the interest is not there. So we did this spelling competition, and what we aimed at is to reignite interest, to direct the attention of the kids to study. Yeah. And the kids were really, really rewarded. We got companies that donated tablets, some of the things kids are hungry to get. So what were some of the outcomes? Children improved their vocabulary. A lot of kids were coming together to learn spellings, to learn, improve. Then we promised the schools, if a child comes first, the English teacher of that child gets a prize. I'm trying to get the name of the computer firm in Lekki now. Okay. They donated the tablet for the teacher of the first child. Okay. So teachers became involved, knowing that. Okay,
so there's an incentive for them. So if your student does well, you then get a prize as well. Okay.
So the school that produced the first child, the teacher got a tablet. Okay. The school itself, 200 textbooks were given to the school, to the teachers. Now we are doing another one come June 7 in Warri, and about 440 primary schools are involved. So we are doing all these programs now. One of the things we've noticed in poor communities, in poor family structures, the parents don't, you see, when our parents will tell us growing up, if you come first, you get this, the reward. Now, what I found out, in poor homes, there's nobody's looking at your report card. So we started this mentoring scheme where we are trying to track your progress if you are coming to the community center. We are trying to bring some incentives. We do our own periodic tests in the community center, outside of the formal schools. Now, when children are beginning to say, there's a place where there's interest in what I'm doing. My parents may not be interested in whether I pass on because the financial needs are so much.
So do you think that could work here in the UK?
In the UK, yes, it could. Now, not the same kind of incentive. Yeah. Not
well, if you were to give teachers that kind of incentive, maybe bonuses that, keep a child in school, keep a child up to a certain grade, maybe that might get teachers to be more involved in ensuring that they help maybe the children who are not so compliant, help them a bit more.
What's that? That's I have not thought deeply on that. Yeah. But what I think the government should do, rather than cutting funding for local organizations and faith-based ones. Yeah. Organizations that can help. Sometimes I've been out. Sometimes, let's say I'm out in London about 12 minutes, and I'm seeing a girl 11 on the streets, no parents. Yeah. Now, you could. They should not. Funding should not be cut. Like I said, a chain is just as strong as the weakest link. Yeah. Now, these are affluent societies, but we can't neglect these. They might be in the minority, but usually, what has given rise to NGOs and all these non-governmental organizations is that there are certain segments of the society that broad government policy cannot take care of. Now, but there are specialist NGOs, local community groups, grassroots associations. Government must pay attention to these people and the problems they are solving.
Let's bring Dawn into this.
Yes, I hear everything, and I totally agree. Incentives are so important because nobody wants to do anything for nothing. Yeah. I mean, I raised my hand earlier in the middle of your speech because it's like, I know even when I was at school in Nigeria, the teachers weren't even getting paid. I mean, some of them haven't got their salary. You always hear them, I have no salary. And I'm like, you're doing this for nothing. I mean, I don't know. It's just so... I don't know. We have to improve because it affects our youths, doesn't it? Back home. I mean, if the teachers are not getting paid or nurses, I mean, the motivation really, they can barely give their basic. How much more? So I think in America things are different slightly. It's similar to the Nigerian system of secondary school, where if you don't pass a particular year, you stay where you are. So I mean, it took me a long time to understand when people were doing big graduation parties and they make such a big deal of finishing secondary. I'm like, really? You're buying your daughter a car because she finished, she graduated from high school? I'm like, I can understand if it was university after a 4-year degree, but secondary school, but it's actually a big deal. And, I think there is a set order there. I think it does help when you have incentives. They want to finish high school, and then there's an order where you just go straight onto university. And
I think that makes them more competitive as well, actually. They have a more competitive society than compared to the UK.
Absolutely. Where secondary school, when you finish it, that's it. And you're left in limbo, and there's no reward. So that does help. Incentives are important.
Okay, we'll try and go on a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about the article in regards to Amnesty International that says that they think that the police are racist because a lot of people on their database are mostly black.
Yes.
Ethnic minorities. They haven't mentioned other gangs in other cultures or other societies, if that's the right word to use, but they're more focused on the black community. And why is that? And that could be why we find that a lot of our youths actually don't trust the police force. And how can we change that, if possible, if there's any way of us changing that? Because we know that we are a minority in this country anyway, right? So we've got to ensure that our children have positive self-images. We know how media can sometimes portray a black person as being more of a deviant than a white person, but it's changing. It's slowly changing, but also it's up to us as a community to install pride, to let them know that, you're different. Because I think some children already behave as deviants because they see themselves as deviant.
Self-fulfilling prophecy. Yes.
But we'll be back after this.
Hi, this is Rodney Hines.
And I'm Michael.
Join us on the Voice of Sports show each and every Saturday on ABN Radio.
We'll keep you bang up to date with all the latest football scores, and we'll discuss all the big talking points in the world of sport. So don't forget, join us this Saturday, 4 till 6 on ABN Radio UK.
Tune in to the new ABN Breakfast Show from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. The London City Show has evolved into an all-new breakfast show with sizzling slices of juicy news and current affairs, served with junior jumbo-sized convos on issues you should be aware of. What did I just say? The ABN Breakfast Show, the Afropolitan breakfast you can't afford to miss.
Consider that life wasted. Consider the heart of the family ripped apart. Consider the potential never realized. Are these the things you consider when you carry a knife? It's not about street cred or respect. It's about staying alive. Drop that knife and save a life. Gwenton Slowly, supporting all family and young people.
So you're listening to the Discourse with me this morning, Esther Alade. And as I said, you can call in if you're listening in on 0208 670 7300 or 0208 191 7078, or you can send us a voice note, a text message to our WhatsApp number on 07887 475 940. That's 07887 475 940. And you can follow us on our social media platforms, which is ABN Radio UK. Drop us a line, tweet us your opinions, let us know what your views are. We're talking about the importance of family units. We've gone through various spectrum of it, actually. We've gone through past education, how it used to be in community, what Dawn and Mr. T have done in terms of their raising their children. We've learned that children's moral values are formed before the age of 10. It's important that we nurture our children. And now we're talking about We've spoken about cuts as well. So the fundings in regards to government cuts and what should be done. And as a community, maybe the church needs to get involved more as well. I don't know if we've spoken about that, and because there's no reason why.
Yeah.
Why the church
that's
should not?
the church.
Oh, the church.
Did you say the church? Yes,
Yeah,
that's
church.
a great point.
We've had people from church organisations have actually come through. There's one church in particular, Spark Nation. They are very much in terms of going after the youth, especially ones that are prone to gangs and crimes, and bringing them in. I think some people are against the way maybe the church is church to Spark Nation, but then it's like, is there a right way? If it's a way that's working and it's bringing the children to God, to Christ, to have an understanding, then who are we to criticize how it's done, if that makes sense? Because is there a right or wrong way to worship? Is it not about personal preference and how God speaks to you, right? Church should not just be done in one form as we know it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel personally, because I think a lot of the children felt that they couldn't be themselves. They felt that maybe they were being hypocritical to who they were. So going into a church, they felt they had to conform. I have to be this way, I have to be that way. But with the Spark Nation, they feel that, okay, I can still listen to the type of music I like, but put Christ into it.
Yes.
I can still be myself, but the good parts of me, not that I have to come in and I don't know. I'm trying to explain.
And look pious.
Because I think there is this thing about, are you a Christian? How should a Christian be? How should a Christian it's like, well, the most important thing is a relationship with Christ, right?
Absolutely.
And how you treat others, because it's all about love.
Yes.
So who am I to judge you? I'm not here to judge, because it says we're not supposed to judge.
Yes.
We have no right to judge others. So how can we say, because you're not doing it my way, it's wrong?
Yeah. And that's why I alluded to the fact that if there's just one way, if it's God's way, because people have different interpretations. And even one scripture in the Bible, you can have 10 different interpretations.
Yeah.
But Esther, you made a great point. I think in terms of modernity, things are changing. How we used to do things, how church used to be is changing. And everyone, as you said, it's about the relationship with God. It's not about following a strict set of church rules.
Yeah.
And the approach is very important.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm walking on the street and someone tells me I'm going to hell, I'm a sinner, repent. That's in the Bible, but there's the way you say it. I'm going to look at you and probably say,
are you okay?
You know what I mean? I'll ignore you. If someone says, hello, are you all right? How are you? And smiles and it's just normal. You'll be more open to that. But I think the church needs to get involved, definitely.
That's
absolutely. Communities.
Yeah, but how do we do that is the question as well. But I'll go to the point with we're talking about maybe the youth don't trust police as well. And there's an article from about Amnesty International that says that Scotland Yard, this is from the Independent, this was 2 days ago. Scotland Yard is listing thousands of children and young men on a racially discriminatory database that is failing to tackle rising violence in London, a new report has found. So Amnesty International said that London's Metropolitan Police shadowy gangs matrix is causing people with no links to crime to be wrongly stigmatized while the perpetrators go free. The Information Commissioner Officer has stated an investigation into the database, which showed details of more than 3,800 subjects as young as 12. So it's found that 3/4 of those listed on the matrix are black, despite the ethnic groups making up just 13% of London's wider population, and 1/4 of those persecuted for serious youth crimes, while 15% are children. Known as gang nominals, I think I've said that right, they are given a green, amber or red donating their perceived risk of violence, and the information can be shared with other authorities including housing associations, schools and job centres. Figures from October 2017 showed the matrix contained 3,806 entries, with 5% in the red category, the highest rank of committing violence, and 16% in the green. And 40%, 1,501 had a harm score of 0, meaning they had no record or charges or police intelligence linking them to violence in the past 2 years. So the Metropolitan Police, which drew up the database following the devastating London riots in 2011, said it aimed to reduce gang-related violence, with prevalent young lives being lost while turning people away from crime. But Amnesty International's research, based on interviews with 30 police officers and other professionals who used the database, found that it was not the answer to the rising violence amid a spat of deadly stabbings and shootings. So the charity report found a chaotic and inconsistent approach to adding individuals to the matrix between different London boroughs, where some officers are alleged to using social media activities to link to grime music as an indication of gang links. So Katie Hallen, who is from Amnesty International UK's director, said the strategy was both racially and discriminatory and ineffective. So if this is one of the ways of thinking about gangs that would draw in a huge range of people who have nothing to do with it, nothing to do with the criminality, it is a conflation of elements of youth culture with violence, offending, and that's heavily racialized, she told Independent. So it's like, it's difficult to know how people come from off the matrix, it says, and whether it's effective policing or not. It's interesting. So they basically put people on this database, and they've also looked at their social media platform and saying that, okay, if you're part of this grime music, then you must be in a gang.
Yeah, assumptions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're looking at the youth culture and putting that, I don't know. It's interesting that they find it just racially biased, I guess.
Biased.
Yeah. And I guess that's all part of it with policing as well. Are they racist? Are they biased? But do they have a reason to be? Because if there's certain crime levels in certain areas, and you know who who's likely to commit those crimes, then you're more likely to go after those people, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah.
But one question: how would you know if I'm a police officer? How would I know who's most likely to commit those crimes? Just because I'm dressed a certain way?
I guess so.
Well, the dressing is one. Now, like I say, sometimes there are real issues. Psychologically, it is difficult for you to divorce your past and completely live free from it. Now, I remember one of Chimamanda's talk of the West just seeing Africa as Africa.
Yes.
And such stereotypes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, what I think is there needs to be a lot of training in the police force.
Oh, definitely.
There needs to be a lot of training because there are stereotypes that are passed.
Yes.
And even when society is changing, as a parent, nothing hurts a child than when the child is changing but the parent is not seeing it. Now, Dad, can't you see I'm making a lot of effort, but you are still talking to me
about my past behaviors.
Like I am still who I used to be.
Yeah. Let me stop you there. There's a point that I've just looked at and seen. It says it's not just about policing, but it's about a system that classed young black kids as a kind of peculiar species that needs to be policed.
Species.
That needs to be policed. He told a press conference. I'm not sure who this. Mark Duggan, I think. Okay. I'll just go
Mark
back.
Duggan is a person.
Hold on.
Right.
No, there was So Mark Duggan sparked the 2011 riots because he was shot.
Yes.
So I think this is coming from all of that as well. And it says that we didn't always have gangs. We spoke about working class sub youth culture like punks and skinheads, but when it comes to black kids, we have to ostracize them. So,
wow.
This is also part of the Mayor Office for Policing and Crime that found that more than 80% of all the stabbing involving a victim aged under 25 in London are deemed to be non-gang related as well. So some are non-gang related. But I think the issue is that it's young children, they're underage children, because they are children.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, so, and also that, you know, you're, as a police officer, maybe you are looking at these children a certain way,
yes,
and
the colour of their
it's not
skin
right
as well.
to stare at. And then children have a fear,
yes,
because they're already seen as deviants. There was an issue with one of my godchildren where they just gone out, you know, around Croydon, but Croydon is not his area. And then some young boys, black boys, came up to them, "What are you doing? You know, where are you from?" And then started attacking them. For no reason.
Yes.
They ran, went to police officer, but police officer was ready to search them and thought they were the ones. You know, so, and then it's like, hold on, but I'm telling you I'm innocent.
Yes.
Believe me that I'm innocent, but they're not seeing that.
Yes.
So how do we bring up our children when we know that maybe some, you know, authorities don't see them as how we want them to be? How do you install, I guess, a sense of self?
Yes.
And, you know, letting them, empowering them to do different, to be different. And that, yeah, you know, you are different.
Yes.
And you might have to work twice as hard to show that actually I am different and I am not what you perceive me to be.
Yes. I think as a parent, I know that it must be heart-wrenching, because I remember... back in the day, as I said, I've got 4 nephews, and at some point they always used to, each and every one of them, they used to come like, "Oh, auntie, I've just been stopped by the police." And, you know, they always were getting stopped because they were a certain age, a certain colour,
looked
a certain
and dressed a certain way.
You know, and these boys were going to college earning their degree. One of them's a barrister, another one, they're very successful businessmen now. You know, and it's heart-wrenching. What do you do? I mean, I think going back to Esther's point, you just, as a parent, you just have to encourage them. You have to say, "Look, I'm so sorry this has happened to you, son or nephew. Don't worry." You know, you hope that justice will play a part. I mean, you know, it's only when they start planting things that you weren't carrying on you and start charging you falsely, you know, because you just don't, the way of the world has completely changed, where you can't even trust in the justice system. But I suppose what a child can trust in or depend on is the parents' continual love and encouragement and coaching. We have to be the first mentors. We have to be the first port of call to say, "Look, child, you know who you are. You know what you aim to be. You know you're not a criminal, you know, and just keep your head up and just keep doing what's right."
Someone just texted in and said, "We are not, as black people, the ethnic minority. That is what we are taught by society.
Yes.
Gangs are social constructs.
Yeah.
Just have the term race is a social construct."
Yes. And that, I think that person is coming from because I did sociology, and they talked about gangs being a social construct, you know, but then again, that was back then when Cohen did a research on gangs. But then again, what would you call today's society where there are postcode wars and things like that? But you have to be very aware of what the media is telling us and what the media is not telling us.
Yeah.
You know, why are they if gangs are a social construct, what's the purpose of that? Do they want to create a pandemic? Do they want to have more control? I'm seeing more police. I used to say America's terrible in terms of police brutality, but I'm seeing social media where British police are manhandling people now. Excessive force.
Yeah.
So is it a control thing? Is it to keep our morale down? And that's where parents
There's been a debate about that, saying that maybe there is a hidden agenda because there has been police cuts. So maybe this has been highlighted as a bigger issue than what it is,
so that
there can be more police.
More money.
I don't know, but I just think that as Lithal Bizzle, the artist, said, we need to take responsibility. We need to take ownership as a community. And we shouldn't overlook when we see gangs of boys doing things that we know visually is wrong. I know we are scared because we don't know, are these children going to attack you? Yeah, they're going to attack you because that's what you've been told. So you're feeding off what you've been told.
That's right.
If you see a gang of boys, they're more likely to be gangs or they're dangerous. So you've got that fear factor in you that, if I try and stop them, are they going to attack me? You know? But sometimes I do it.
I do it too,
I'm
actually.
like, you guys shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, I do it too.
Stop, you know, because I just feel like it's a reflection of me.
Absolutely. Yeah, and if we just walk past and how do we complain about cuts and police and other factors and gangs, but what do we actually actively doing? You know, even if it's like stop that and run away, you know, because you don't want to square up to them, but they're like, oh, someone's had the audacity to challenge us, you know, and it might put something in them. So we have to be mindful that we don't know who we're dealing with, but to just ignore, because that could be our relative that's being attacked or that's a victim. So we need to be able to say, look, guys, behave yourself. Your mother raised you better than that. Yeah. You know, let's not always be afraid of confronting what's wrong.
Okay. So let's go back to family units, the importance of it. I was raised by my sisters, losing my parents at an early age. So I had them. And not only that, I always say Fresh Prince of Bel-Air story. When I got to a certain age after secondary school, like, okay, we're shipping you off to this auntie and uncle.
That happened to us too.
You know, South London is not doing you any
I know, my goodness.
But for me, I didn't want to live up to, because sometimes you were stereotyped. You were given a label that, oh, you know, if you don't do this, you're going to be this. You're going to get pregnant and live on council estate and have a council house.
Benefits.
Yeah, you know. And I was like, I actually not going to be that girl. I'm not going to be that person. Yeah. You know, but taking me to a different environment helped change my mindset as well. So, but that was having other family members who got involved in helping me. Okay. So I think that's really important. So in terms of that, what can we do? Because we're talking about family units, the importance of it as a solution to youth crime today, because we know that some mothers are not able to say, actually, I need help. And some others are learning themselves, you know, or fathers, they don't know the way. So it's hard for them to reach out and say, actually, I'm struggling. I need help with this child. So what can we do as a community if we see anything? You know, if you have a neighbour, you know something's not quite right, and if there's a way that you can help, should people take those steps? You know?
Well, like, I still believe, I still believe that early parental education
is important.
It's important. I did my MBA in Ireland, and when you are doing strategy, you don't look at the softer issues of life. Just thinking now, I said to myself, I wish there was a marriage course when I was doing my MBA.
Okay.
I know Columbia Business School right now. There are some softer issues of life that are one of the courses, the MBA courses. And I just think because the way the MBA, the case method, people learn a lot when you really take it serious when you begin to do a case analysis. Because what really happens, there are a lot of times you don't pay attention to the softer issues of life. In a materialistic world, it is not the attributes of love, patience that you want to learn.
Okay.
What you are thinking of, the attributes of get, and how much I have been able to get by whatever means.
Yeah.
Now, I think there need to be a way of showing, where if you can show people the true value. When you were reading that Amnesty's article, I said to myself, any day, any time, that love is a winner. That any day, any time. That love, one of the things, love is not just not just from a religious perspective. It helps people open up their minds.
Yeah.
The police need to be trained on debiasing their minds. There's a book I'm reading now of an arrest that was made. That was an arrest that was made in the United States several years ago. A crime has just been committed. A black lawyer happened to be parking his car in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And as soon as the police arrived and he was coming out of his car, they pointed a gun at him.
Oh, wow.
In the midst of so much, but just for his color.
Okay.
And funny enough, he was just coming from the defense of another black person who was thrown into jail. Now, you see, these stereotypes affect us.
Yes.
There are things we have to be honest with.
Yeah.
If the police hear of, a black person stabbed this, a black person, now they start tweaking their database. Then blacks are prime suspects. But like I said earlier on, when a child is changing and you are not acknowledging, people respond. If I am a black child and I'm beginning to see that I am 5 times more likely to be profiled as bad than other races, it's going to make me more bad. It's going to make me really vile. Because you are portraying me. I have to build up a defense system of my own. I have to do that. That's what you are telling me. Yeah. Because you are telling me the system already is looking for a way to... It's
against you, yes.
Now, so what the police need to be trained, and when I say love, how to approach people. Love. I found out love, talking to people in a very compassionate way can disarm even an
Absolutely.
Empathy.
Yes.
It can disarm even the vilest of us.
Soften the hardest of hearts.
Yeah, it softens the heart.
Yes.
There are people that I've seen, just talking to them from a heart of love.
Yes.
They are changed forever.
Absolutely.
Now, if that could be done, if the police can do that internal training for their members. Yeah. Now, forget the stereotypes you have when you are thinking somebody's a suspect or interrogating somebody. You never can tell. Shakespeare says of all the things that are difficult to interpret, the human heart. You never can tell who is good and who is not good. That's right. And we've seen people that we thought were the best of people commit crimes that are unimaginable.
Yes.
So now, for you to do effective policing, one of the things you must do is debias your mind. No, don't throw away the stereotypes.
Yes.
That a black kid is 5 times more like, no, forget that.
Exactly.
Love doesn't work with statistics.
Yes.
Deal with people who they are when you meet them.
Yes.
Confront them with love.
I hope they can do that. But if your work is trained you to be a certain way, you look at figures and facts, right?
Yeah, if your work could train you to, first of all, to be aggressive. No, you see, irrespective of what your work has trained you to do, you can apply love. Even if I'm suspecting you, if I can show to you that I care about you.
So empathy.
Empathy makes a lot of difference.
Yes.
Even in the workplace.
Yes.
If I can say to you, demonstrate that I care about you, it takes the conversation to a higher level.
Yes.
Now, but when the conversation, if from the word go, the conversation is such that the society is such that, you don't care about me anyway. Yeah. Well, I don't even care about myself anyway. So bringing love down, bringing the soft issues of life, empathy, compassion, and all that into the workplace, the police, then the family unit. Parents should be able to teach their children too, not racial education. Parents need to be debiased. Don't teach your children, don't tell your children that they are different. No. The other man, the reason you are treated like this is what happened in the past. And the other person is having problem. Debiasing is our mind. But your life you are going to change that story. Don't worry. We are going to change that.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, how parents communicate to their kids, the problems in society also matter. If you communicate to your kids, well, they don't want us anyway. Yeah, we are minorities and we have no good anyway. Well, your kids are going to act out.
Okay, so negative.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's bring Dawn.
Yes, and that's why I said, I gave the scenario of my nephews at certain points saying, "Oh, Auntie, I've just been stopped by the," and you know that your nephew's a good child, pursuing an education, not in crime, and that's how it is. So you just continually encourage your child. You continue to instill those values of don't worry, it will get better. You just focus on where you want to be, where you want to go. So, but it's difficult when the stacks, when the odds are sort of against you. I mean, I understand. I hear what you're saying about love and empathy. We cannot guarantee that. We can try and guarantee that within our own households with family members, but the police, it will, I think, and I'm sorry to say, to be such a pessimist, it may only get worse, because we used to have community police. We used to have police that on the streets that used to have a nice chat with us, and say, how was your day, and kick a football with us.
Do they still have community
police?
police?
Where? It used to be a more sort of like laid back. Police used to be more laid back, more involved in people's lives. The community, you were a familiar Bobby on the beat.
Oh, familiar
But
face.
now you've got different people. I don't think they even have time to train. How much more talk about love? They're just doing a job. They're just doing a job. And the statistics, I know you said, Esther, about, how else can they respond when the statistics, I mean, sometimes those statistics are warped. They're actually
as we know,
not fact.
They're biased.
Yeah, they're biased because they want to keep minorities, and although it's questionable whether we are minorities, in a particular place. My daughter works in A&E emergency, and she says that trauma victims are equally white as well as black. Yeah. But we're told that it's just black on black stabbings, but that's not the case.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on a quick break, and then we'll come back and try and finalise.
No one plays it better on the radio than us. ABN Radio, home of Afrobeats.
It's here, the African Gospel Music and Media Awards 2018, celebrating excellence. On the 2nd of June 2018, at East London Arts and Music Main Auditorium, 45 Maltings Close, Bromley by Bow, London, E3 3TA, from 6 p.m, featuring Joe Beto, Diana Hamilton, Isabella, Called Out Music, Shekinah, Dena Mwanga, Afri David, Angel Bernard, Judith Sefuma, Blessing Ali, and Reaper's Choir. For tickets and information, visit AfricanGospelMusicAwards.com or call 07906 932 670. The African Gospel Music and Media Awards 2018, celebrating excellence.
Clap your hands and dance it.
The Discourse on ABN Radio, engaging our community with discerning conversation.
Join me, Esther Alade, on The Discourse, where we will be redefining perspectives with authentic analysis.
Join The Discourse from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. on ABN Radio.
This Friday and every Friday on ABN Radio, London's Afropolitan radio station. Tune in to the new ABN Breakfast Show from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. The London City Show has evolved into an all-new breakfast show with sizzling slices of juicy newsy current affairs served with junior jumbo-sized convos on issues you should be aware of. What did I just say? The ABN Breakfast Show, the Afropolitan breakfast you can't afford to miss.
Consider that life wasted. Consider the heart ripped out of a family. Consider the potential never realized. Are these the things you consider when you carry a knife? It's not about street cred. It's about staying alive. Drop that knife. Save your life.
Welcome back to The Discourse. It's Friday, the 11th of May, 2018. It was a beautiful morning, actually, when I was coming in. Not bad. Hopefully it won't rain like yesterday, because we know what this UK weather can be like. But if you're going out, it's lovely, lovely, lovely day. So I'm here every Friday from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. And I've been privileged to have a lovely two guests with me. It's always nice when people are in the studio. It makes it go faster as well, and the conversation's been really quite good with Dawn and Mr. T here, and it's nice that you've had your own personal input as well and helped us along with the conversation. And just to let you guys know that ABN TV, which is UK's favourite black television, is moving from Sky 235 to channel 195, and we've moved from the 1st of May May 2018. But ABN is still available on Virgin TV on channel 842. So don't miss a moment with ABN TV. I love the way I just did that advert.
That's very sultry. Oh,
don't you dare miss a moment with us. Okay, so we'll conclude in terms of family units and importance of helping to solve the youth crime. And you made a really good point in regards to your daughter working in A&E that trauma happens for both black and white.
Yes.
In terms of crime, trauma crime that comes in. And that, we do hear a lot more about the black community, although we make up, 15%? I think the figures are in terms of the UK population.
Wow, yes.
Actually, don't quote me on that.
Yes.
But we are a minority.
Okay, yes. Sorry, I actually said we're not a minority, but in terms of, yes,
I guess we are.
We are a minority, but how then can the figures show an overwhelming amount of minority perpetrators? What's happened to all the other, the 85% of the non-black, non-racial? So, you have to take everything with a pinch of salt. When I did my at University of Surrey film and television analysis, I like to say I'm a media analyst. I actually start looking at analysing what they have not told us, as opposed to, in addition to what they tell us. So really be very alert that sometimes they haven't told us everything. They may have an agenda, only God knows, but we just have to not be naive that some figures may actually be misrepresented.
Yeah.
Yes. So can I just say, so with the family unit, I mean, I am involved with Women of Noble Character.
Yeah.
It's a small, a group of women. Some of them are single, some of them are married, children. So we just support one another. I think let's go back to that support, whether it's from the biological father, whether it's from an uncle, whether it's from a neighbour. I think, as you made a very good point about checking neighbours and even just admitting I need some help here, and that's what our group does. We encourage one another. We've had bereavements, we've had sickness, we've had divorces, we've had all sorts of situations, but we make sure we're there for one another, even if it's just a text. A group text. Good morning, have a wonderful day, have a blessed day. The Lord is your strength, when you're going through things.
Yeah.
So we need to be more outward focused as well, in terms of not just our own family unit, but other people.
I like that.
Okay, so like we've said all along, the family unit remains the bedrock of the society.
It does.
Yeah. We cannot blame the failure of society on external influences alone.
Mm-hmm.
External influences are there, but it's the family that is really responsible for shaping society.
Yes.
And if the family system is broken down, then society has a lot to deal with. It must register with us that the responsibility for a better society starts from the family nucleus.
Yes.
There is we can't swap that. We can't exchange that. And I think we need to take that home.
Yes.
We just need to take it
Absolutely. Home. I mean, just the other day I was went on my Facebook feed. There was a Father and Daughter Day, and I do feel that they do spend more effort and more time with children, parenting, their relationship with their children back in the States. I really do. I mean, you actually see it
who spends more time?
Well, obviously, I'm talking about from a suburban perspective. Okay. I'm not in the sort of inner city where there's shootings, bullets flying past.
Okay.
But they make us think that. Is there really bullets?
To be honest, I haven't seen it. I mean, as I said demographics is important. Where you live, who your neighbours are, the influences. I don't see it, Esther. Maybe because I'm married to a doctor and we're living in an affluent neighbourhood. But there are still some black people in our neighbourhood, and they're not focused on drugs and crime and just ratchet and all this stuff you see on reality TV. There is the American dream where everyone can achieve. And both parents, whether you're divorced or together, you have an active role in your children. The fathers are like, you have John Charles Kennedy, the first John Charles Kennedy II, John. They name their. That's how proud they are of their offspring.
Okay.
You have the third, the second, the third, the fourth.
Do you know what I'm picturing your neighborhood to be like? I don't know. You know when you've got Desperate Housewives and everything's perfect, perfect gates, more lawns, everyone's coloured gates. But if your gates is not coloured, someone's coming to look.
It sort of is. And when we first moved there, like the majority are sort of like non-black.
Yeah,
and they do look at you like to say, "Oh, you're going to come and bring down our neighborhood." But no, actually, we're going to give it more spice, more excitement. We're not all, as the media portray us. Yes.
I like that. I need to come and visit those.
Yeah, please do.
Soon.
Please do. We've got lots of space for you.
I think in the West, the suburbs, you watch crime on the television like people in other countries.
Yes.
Because you hardly see it. And you could live here in London and even watch it as if you are staying in there. What I really see is my wife normally says something. Say the way they are talking about evil is like it's everywhere, but you can't see it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm glad Esther is running a program like this.
Yes.
The media has a role
absolutely.
in shaping public opinion.
Absolutely.
Now, but I normally would say to my wife, I said, evil has a very loud voice. I remember some years ago, I was in Dublin and I was working for an Irish guy. And he said, Tunde, you're planning to go back to Nigeria, but it's a country full of 419. And I said, Mr. Sean, the people that are 419 just like 1% of the population. He now said, I don't get you. You told me the other day that Nigeria's population is 170 million. He said 1%, you mean 1.7 million? I said, oh no, I'm sorry. No, 1 point. They are not up to. They are not 1 point.
Not even 0.1. It's just what
I
the
said
media
percentages could be wrong. I said we're talking of something 0.001.
Yeah.
But it could be so loud.
It's over exaggerated, isn't it?
It's over exaggerated.
Yeah.
And,
but like most things, they do say that, when you do something, if someone compliments you, you hear the criticism more than you hear the compliment.
That's one fact of life.
Yeah.
You never. My wife will say nobody says anything. The media doesn't say anything about the good stuff happening. I said it's already good. There's nothing to
exactly, and that's why I say take them with a pinch of salt because they have a motive. They're all biased. Excuse me, as disclaimer. That's my own opinion, not ABN Radio's opinion.
There is a book that has just come out. I've not read it, but a friend of mine sent me excerpts recently. Mr. Wale Onalakbo. He said the book is. The world is not as bad as it is. In the brief excerpt I have been able to flip through, the author is an American. He was comparing life to the 50s, the 60s, and he was using the real statistics.
Okay.
Children going to school, He said, but what the media has chosen to portray is a world going into hell. Disaster and turmoil.
Pandemic,
Yeah. Now I know social media because it's the bad we hear. That's what the media is looking for.
Yeah.
Social media has a way of also blowing it out of proportion.
Yeah.
And I want to also say that social media is also part of the problem that we have today.
Apparently,
just to say that in passing, some of the problems we have with children is too early access to social media. Early,
Yes, and iPhones.
Yeah, to the children. I mean, if some of the things I've read in psychology are true, the brain is under development, trying to grab as much as you can. The kind of exposures.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just imagine the kind of content on YouTube.
Yeah.
And the child just with a tablet or anything can access any of those content.
It's a lot because compared to my age, we had magazines.
Yes.
So I came just before the internet blew up. So where you could access your kind of like culture from was the hip hop magazines.
Yes.
So then you see American hairstyles, you get ideas, and then you have the MTV culture, and you're watching MTV, and that's where you got that from. And then internet's now blown up, and everything else is content is easily accessible.
That's right.
I was doing my WhatsApp today, and it was asking me if I was 16 and over. I was thinking, because obviously there's new data law that's coming in on the 24th of May. So everyone's probably getting signals from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram telling you to review the data, conditions. But if you don't agree to it,
they withdraw your service.
You're not going to have
bullied into bullied into compliance.
So what do you do? But like, as you said, in terms of age, yes, I think it should be restricted. And for WhatsApp to be asking me to make sure that I'm 16 and over, it's like, should children really be having telephones or mobile phones?
Yes, and parents need to not feel guilty in finding out. You know, if my daughter's upstairs, the younger one, I'm going up there. If I don't hear from her for 2 hours, I'm finding out what's on her phone and what she's watching on telly. I'm sorry, I will be a mother even when she's 50 years of age, because as you said, responsibility lies with the parent for the most part.
Okay, we've got literally 1 minute and then we're almost over. It's gone so quickly. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Tunde, I'll give you 30 seconds. 1, 2.
Do your best as a parent.
Perfect.
The responsibility for the society we seek rests on parents, not on the society.
I love that.
We have to go back to the basics. Don't allow social media to raise your children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and Lady Dawn says, I reiterate what Mr. T says, you know, parents, you take full responsibility first and foremost. They're your role models. It's not a case of doing what I say and not what I do. They will see what you do and they will pass that on to their children.
Yeah.
So it's a knock-on effect.
So children learn by watching.
Yes.
So be careful what you do.
Yes.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'm going to say a quote from one of our guests we've had before, Kemi Folari. She said, when the home can't parent, we need to parent.
Yes.
So we need to look at that as a community, that when we know a home is struggling, we should take that responsibility on whichever way we can, however little we can. You know, by even setting up the projects you've done, it's helping some, it's making a difference, it's having an impact. And now we have, you know, a really good Nigerian goalkeeper.
Yeah.
You know, we like that. So that is it for the discourse this morning.
Thank you.
It's been thoroughly enjoyable.
And I am here every Friday from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. And it's a social political talk show where we give you a different analysis each time. And have a lovely weekend, whatever you're doing. Enjoy the wedding tomorrow, whoever's watching, because he's getting married, isn't he? I think it's tomorrow. Oh, I got it wrong. Or maybe next week. When is Harry?
Meghan.
There's the 19th. Oh, next week. Okay, got it wrong. Next week. Enjoy your weekend.
Fuel tariffs are rising by an average of